At this point, I will let our panelists introduce themselves, and then we will get right into our first topic. Michael, would you mind going first?
Sure. So my name is Michael Howard. I'm the Managing Director of Facilities at Duke University. I've been there about 9.5 years now. I have the opportunity to oversee all of our facility operations, as well as fitness, aquatics, and risk management. We mentioned discussing the size of our school. And for us, that is still up in the air at this point. We fluctuated between a capacity of 2,000 students on campus this fall, up to 5,000 students on campus this fall. So we're still working through our size as to what we will have on campus. But that's a quick snapshot as to who I am.
Brittany, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Brittany Reynolds. I am the Associate Director of Operations and Facilities at the University of South Carolina in Columbia. We are in the home, or I guess the capital of South Carolina, and we have about 30 to 35,000 students within our university. So we're kind of the same as Michael. We don't really know at the current moment how many of those students will be on campus or off campus or taking classes virtually this semester, but we hope to have that answer late June, early July.
And Mila, can you go ahead?
Hi, my name is Mila Padgett, and I'm the director of USC Aiken, and we are part of the USC System Schools in South Carolina. Our university is a small public university. We have around 3,400 students, and for this fall, we have 1,000 beds on campus, and right now we're sitting at around 700 that have committed to come back, which isn't that much lower than what we traditionally would have at this time. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, that's a little bit about USC Aiken.
Okay, great. So real quick, before we hop into our official topics, if we could have each of you just speak to what your timeline is for reopening, if you have a specific date or general timeline. Michael, do you want to go first?
Sure. So our date is still fluid. It's still moving. We're waiting on an email from our president that's expected to come out mid to end of June. But what we temporarily have in place is having essential staff report back to work July 6th. We have the remaining of our full-time staff reporting back to work July 27th, with the anticipation of a potential opening of August 10th. But that was all previously based on a school year starting date of August 17th, which I was informed last week is up in the air still. So that's our current temporary timeline. Again, essential staff getting in, essential staff including vendors as well for cleaning, et cetera, F&D, housekeeping, so on and so forth. Full-time staff July 27th, and then a potential reopen date of August 10th is where we're kind of rolling with right now.
Okay, Brittany.
So right now we are hoping to reopen our facilities June 22nd. If all the stars align, that will be our opening date, but that hasn't been communicated out campus-wide or to our members yet. We have a very excited president that loves fitness and loves working out within our facilities, and he really wants us to open as soon as possible. So we're trying really hard to get open by June 22nd. We're currently in phase 1 of reopen. So we have about 30% of our professional staff on site preparing the building, trying to get up and running. We hit phase 2 on our opening date, which would be June 22nd. And at that point, we get to up our staffing numbers to about 60%, with the August date being our 90% restaffed zone. So hopefully by the start of school, we're back to 90 to 100% staffing, and we're open and we have everything figured out and we're ready for the start of the semester.
How about you, Mila?
So our plan, we are a little unique. We have a cardiac rehab program on campus that we facilitate and run with the hospital. So our cardiac rehab program is actually on its 3rd week of being open. So we've kind of gotten to do this soft phase opening. And then we are reopening to our membership next Wednesday, June 10th. So with that, we've also done a phased approach with our professional staff, but we never truly shut down. We always had essential employees that were on campus. Then we had phase 1 that started almost 2 weeks ago now, where your phase 1 employees came back. Our phase 2 employees come back Monday, and then we'll have everybody on campus 2 weeks after that, which is right around the 4th of July timeframe. So my entire staff has been back now for 2 weeks, and we're training our student employees today to come back to reopen next week. So that's we're in a little bit faster track, but we are opening modified hours for sure. And I can talk more about that once we get into the questions.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you to each of our panelists for being willing to share your experiences today. And a quick reminder as we head into our discussion that all of our other participants can write questions, any questions you have in the chat as we're going through these topics, and we will be reading those aloud when we get to the question and answer portion of this session toward the end. We'll try to leave around 20 minutes at least for those questions. Your questions do not need to fall in line with the topics that we've pre-selected for our panelists to answer. So it's very open-ended. You can ask pretty much a question regarding reopening, and we'll do our best to provide answers from the perspectives of our panelists. So with that, let's jump into question number 1. Our first topic centers on the new normal that students and other users of your facility will encounter. So if you can talk us through from their perspective, from the perspective of someone who's walking into your facility for the first time after reopening, what do you imagine stepping into your facility for the first time will be like? And what changes will they encounter as they walk through the facility from check-in to then other areas? And Mila, would you mind leading things off?
Sure. So a couple of things. I mean, we obviously look at the guidelines for South Carolina and then the CDC guidelines, and that all informs kind of what we're doing. But we are making it very clear that this is fluid. We're going to learn as soon as we open, and then it may change. But right now, everyone, as they walk in, will have to get their temperature screened. They will have to answer the series of questions that are the common questions. And then masks for us are recommended but not required for people that are exercising. It's a little bit different for our staff. And we are kind of coming at this that everything that we're doing is a shared responsibility. So there's responsibility on us as the facility and the university, but there is also responsibility on the patron if you're choosing to come back. That's, you know, all those guidelines that we're following. You have to clean before and after use of any piece of equipment. Stay and honor the 6-foot social distancing. Make sure you're following the policies. So we are really coming at it like that because, I mean, I don't feel that we can ever say that we are offering a completely safe space because you just don't know. So you can do everything you can to mitigate risk, and we will do that, but it still also is on our patrons, our staff, being honest if you're feeling sick. Because I don't know about you all, but I was one that I would push through. If I was sick, I was still coming to work. I don't know what it was ingrained in my brain that was a sign of weakness. I don't know, but that I'm not going to do that anymore. You know, so it's also changing some of our behaviors, I think, and expectations that maybe previous bosses put in our head, like you have to do X, Y, Z. So, you know, that's a little snapshot of what we're looking at. And we've gotten to practice it with our cardiac rehab. So that's kind of been nice for us to start on a very small, very controlled scale.
We kind of, like Mila was saying, are very fluid. We have several different things in place to kind of assist our members. And as we've made decisions, we've tried to view what it would look like from the member perspective. So as they're walking into a space, everything is going to be very different. Their entire experience is going to be very different. And we as a fitness center need them to feel like they can trust us in what they are coming in to do. And so for us, we know we've moved and relocated a lot of our equipment. We've been given the gift of space right now. So we have a 4-court basketball gym that we've been able to move equipment from our fitness areas, so our weight deck and our cardio area, into those extra basketball courts, not only taking them offline so that people aren't tempted to play basketball, but giving them a better purpose at this time and allowing us to, get that at least 6 foot. In our cardio spaces, we have 6 to 10 to 12 feet between equipment. So that's really allowed us to relocate and to kind of hopefully make our members feel a little bit more comfortable coming in. Our goal in everything that we're doing is to make the least confident, most anxious, most nervous participant feel comfortable in our space. So with that too, we're going to be upping the number of sanitation stations throughout the facility. We've also decided to use this as an opportunity to revamp some of our racquetball courts. So allowing us to further spread that equipment out, allowing space to be reallocated differently. And we've really tried to put on our creative thinking caps and see how we can do things differently, because they are going to walk in and it is going to be a scary experience for everybody walking into the space. But we want to make sure that our staff are well trained, that every member feels comfortable in the space and that they're doing their part. So we'll have a lot of signage encouraging them to do their part. The university itself has a pledge that all students, faculty, and staff will live by during this time, that holds everyone accountable for their actions during this time. So we will too have the temperature scanners at the entry. We will have the marks on the floor for queuing. We will have arrows kind of directing people down pathways. And we have also kind of been trying to figure out, we as a university, our executive director for health services wants us as the rec center to have a daily screening form for each person that comes in. So we're currently kind of trying to work through how we're going to screen everyone through that screening tool, as well as temperature scan to get them in the door, especially knowing in August, we're going to see an influx of students on campus that are going to have longer lines and higher frustration, and trying to figure out how we can streamline and mitigate that so that we don't have issues for the long haul. So using this reopen time to kind of work through some of those solutions as well.
Awesome. So to piggyback really off of what's already been mentioned, we are installing a movie theater type glass entrance, which has a speaking hole as well as a transaction space at the bottom that will be at our front desk as we move forward. Accessing the building will be based on reservations. You would have to make a reservation. We're working with Fusion at this point and EMS to try to figure out the best way to roll that out. So that's going to be drastically different. Obviously, just showing up at the gym won't work, right? We're going to kind of base that off capacity numbers. Another thing we're looking at doing is increasing staff, right, surrounding cleanliness. And what we're going to do is put those staff members in highly visible shirts. So they'll be in like the highlighter green, highlighter yellow type of shirts. I got that little tidbit from the Miami Dolphins, who is working on something very similar. And really the effort there is just to put people at ease, right? If you see 6, 7, 8, 9 people cleaning and attention to cleaning, you feel a little more comfortable. So that's something that we're going to try to work to do to make our members feel a little better. Equipment will be on rotations as well as multi-purpose rooms. Our Red Mango space, which is our food services that's within our facility, will be all online sales as well as delivery to the front door. Obviously, when you enter the facility, there'll be a lot of limited programming when you talk about outdoors and things of that nature. Still trying to work through what that'll look like. You'll see increased signage. We will have masks, and masks will be required within our facilities. So within our signage, there will be tons of education surrounding working out with masks and what that may look like in efforts to reduce and not have a lot of people passing out unnecessarily. Our hours, our schedule will be block scheduling. Right now, we're looking at potential 7 to 11, 11 to 12 would allow us to clean, reopen from 12 to 4. 4 to 5 will give us an hour to clean, and then we would open from 5 to 9 or 10. We haven't locked that in just yet. So that's going to be different, right? Again, block scheduling is not consistent with what we did in the past. CDC guidelines obviously are going to drive a lot of this, and I think the two biggest things that were mentioned previously is flexibility on members and then accountability with members. This can't fall all on us. It's impossible for us to do this, and if they want a place in which they want to work out and a place in which they want to feel safe, we need to give them the tools to do that, but they also need to have the attitude to do that. And I'm going to steal the membership pledge too that was just previously mentioned. I'm going to take that back to the team, but it'll be a completely different scene. Staff will have on masks. There will be temperature checks at the door. Duke is working on an app right now that everyone must complete a small survey before you access campus. That is faculty, staff, student, etc. And we're going to tap into that, and that will also connect to the temperature check that will be at the front desk. Just to kind of create consistency and make sure those two systems connect and talk. But the atmosphere is going to be different. One of the things I'm really tasking our staff with right now is focusing in on customer service. You know, we're a place that is set to reduce stress and really, really work with staff. And you enter the building, you walk into a movie theater glass now. The person behind the glass has a mask on. That environment is different, and I'm tasking our team with really focusing in on keeping that community piece as best we can, because that's why we exist. That's why people come to us, is to reduce stress and those types of things. So that's just a small snapshot into what our members will see, but it's going to be drastically different. It won't ever look like February 2020.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear all the different perspectives and the creativity that can come out of a time like this. So thanks to all of you for sharing some of what you're doing. Our next topic focuses on how the shutdown and reopening process has affected your budget priorities and how you're going to be doing things. How have you had to adapt your plans in light of COVID-19? And Brittany, if it's okay, can we come to you first?
Sure. I think we probably, like most people on this call, the budgets just went out the window, because what's a budget at this point right now? With us on campus, we don't really even know, because of the potential issues with enrollment. We don't know kind of what that hit of our budget's going to look like, plus the hit of the whole COVID era, if you will. But we were very lucky in that we were able to reallocate a lot of our spending at the end of the school year toward these COVID expenses that we have right now. So we've been able to do that. And we've also been able to kind of take a look at our budgets for 2021 and figure out where we can gain some extra money by removing programs, because we'll have to think about things differently. We won't be able to play flag football. We won't be able to play intramural basketball. So there's no need to order supplies for those sports. So that money can be reallocated for temperature checks. They can be reallocated for additional custodial supplies. So we've kind of been picking and choosing what we need to be able to accommodate this time, and to be able to have as fluid and as easy to navigate protocols in place, and all of the technology that we need to do that, because that for us is a priority right now. When we have 100 people standing outside of the door at 6 a.m. to get in, we need to be able to get those 100 people in through the building and in through all the processes. So if that means we have to buy a temperature scanning unit that we can place at our turnstiles rather than having a check-in space where they check in with a person, then that's what we need to do to be able to function. So luckily we've been able to be pretty flexible with our budget and be able to spend what we need to spend from this current fiscal year and reallocate funds that way, and then be able to make those changes for next year. But we won't have our final budget numbers for next year until later this summer as well.
So similar to what she mentioned, obviously there's still a lot of moving pieces when you talk about budget. We don't really know those enrollment numbers, which drives tons. But one of the things and one of the opportunities that we're taking advantage of right now is we're working on a virtual student activity fee. So basically what that is we charge the students that choose not to come back to campus some type of a virtual fee that will include the programs that we're offering right now for free. That we kind of had to really quickly turn around. And I consider that an opportunity, and I've kind of challenged our team with keeping that as an opportunity, because the goal is down the road, when once we get back to the new norm and everyone's back on campus and everyone's being charged your typical student activity fee, the goal is then in turn to take this virtual fee and transition that to our alums and those that are connected to us in ways in which they can stay connected with our facilities. So that's, again, it's probably 2 or 3 years down the road, but anything we're doing right now that we can maintain and build from is something that's encouraging. So that's why I consider that an opportunity. So we're working on a virtual activity fee, student activity fee right now. We have instructed all of our program areas our budgets were already approved, quote unquote, before this happened. We've instructed all of our directors to cut their budget by 10%, and then also have a backup plan for 20%. I don't think we'll get to that 20%. But just it's a great exercise for our team to really focus in on what's essential. And I think that was the key behind pushing that envelope to go to 20. I don't think we'll get to 20, but 20 really makes you look at your program area and really makes you identify what you have to do to stay in line with our mission, vision, values, and what we're trying to give to our student population. So that kind of helps our thought process as we go into the year. Overall, our department is probably working on about an 18% budget cut. But we think that'll be easily done, and mainly because our hours of operation are going to be drastically reduced. When you start talking about block schedule, you're closing 3 or 4 hours earlier. We're not opening as early. We won't have as many staff because we have 2 facilities here at Duke. We're planning to only open 1 because that's where all of our students will live. It's going to be on West Campus, so we're only going to open 1. That's going to cut our facility operating budget by quite a bit. So meeting that 10% from a departmental perspective wasn't necessarily challenging. As mentioned, a lot of programs aren't going to take place, intramurals, things of that nature, or how they take place will look differently. So saving of funds is a great opportunity for us all to really focus in on what's essential. But again, I think the really cool piece is the virtual student activity fee that we're going to roll out this fall. And then again, the hope is that we can launch and leverage that as another revenue source 3 to 4 years from now when we're all back to normal, and that be an offering that we provide to our alums and to different vendors and partners of the university.
From our end, my budget here is already extremely lean. So we operated bare bones. I mean, if you've been to USC Aiken, I mean, we have nice facilities for the size of our campus. We do awesome things, but we already operated on almost nothing. So our budget overall is the same. Now we have been asked to look at, okay, here's a 10% cut, here's a 20% cut. And for us, it's kind of similar to what Michael said. Because we were closed, we saved that amount of money. But just to give you perspective, we have 1 student working in our fitness center while we're open, and we have 2 lifeguards. So we have 3 student staff compared to like what Brittany has at USC is completely different. But again, our budget is smaller, so it's just you add a couple zeros on there. It's still, you have to still make adjustments. So in our end, we've actually had to increase our staffing. So now we're having 2 student employees on staff because we have to with all this new screening. And we often operate from a student affairs perspective instead of just campus recreation and wellness. So we have been asked within student affairs and even academically, how can we partner? How can we get rid of this program, but we can do a cross program of diversity education, fitness, and housing. And how are you going to do that together so then we share resources, we share staff. And so we've done that in the past. I feel like we've done pretty well with it, but we're being asked to even think more creatively to how do we do it even better. And then that will help, different areas within our student affairs division to cross program and save money. And then we're also a little bit different that all of our facilities maintenance comes out of the facility maintenance department on our campus. So we don't manage that piece of it, which is a huge budget piece. So when they ask us to, to cut XYZ to help their budget, because that's where we have to take and be mindful that it's not coming necessarily directly out of ours, but it does come out of the university as a whole. So we are often looking at different pieces to say, all right, this isn't your pot of money right here, specifically under your budget management, but you need to do this because it is impacting, the facilities, if whatever it may be. And we're also coming to block scheduling when we open next week, and we're not going to be open on the weekends. And we did that intentionally because for the first 3 weeks we're open, we want a professional staff member there every hour that we're open. And so we've had to manipulate, and we have 4 professional staff members. So between all 4 of us, we need to be here at 6 a.m. until 7 p.m., really 8:30 because we're cleaning after each of those. So, we looked at that as a budget piece too. Like, we're not asking our students to be here by themselves when we first reopen. I mean, it's going to be a little bit unnerving for everybody. So that, it gives you a little bit of a piece of a small school and maybe how they do it a little bit different.
Yeah, thank you. It's really great to hear all the different perspectives. This next question may apply to each of you in very different ways. So answer in whatever degree this does or does not factor into your plans. But are you considering any new or existing technology systems or tools to make reopening safer or more manageable? And Michael, I'm going to come to you first, but I know you already mentioned the app that you guys are developing. You can talk more about that and other things that you have been considering.
Yeah, so the app, I wish I had the IT brain to go into details about that, but I don't. But the app is something that is going to be mandatory for all the Duke community to have on their phones. Again, we're trying to connect that with the temperature checking machine that will be at the entrance. So those are technologies that we're working through. Another thing that we're doing, I saw Georgia Tech was on the call, is we're working with City Life. We already had a relationship with them in the past, and we're trying to expand that at this point. Basically, what happens with City Life is it works off of heat sensors that allows you to say how many folks are in your space at a certain time, and then that is in turn projected onto your website. So that's a cool feature for us because once we get a capacity number, that's how we're going to play with that number, right? As those folks kind of come in, reservation base will be initial. And then once you're in, we can kind of see how many folks are in the space. And then that opens up the potential for 1 or 2 more slots to be filled on those last minute type of whims. So City Life will be huge in kind of what we do moving forward. I mentioned the Duke app. We're working with Fusion and EMS on the reservation base of access and how we can get folks in and working through that. Qualtrics may be a part of a survey depending on if Fusion can't do what we need them to do. So we're going to try to connect those two. When you talk about technologies and cleaning, we're looking at the Clorox 360. I think everyone in the world is trying to buy one of those at this point. But we're looking at that type of machine to assist with our block scheduling. We're also trying to work with the GABC, which is a Global Biorisk Advisory Council. Athletics, we're piggybacking off of athletics, and they're a group that kind of comes in and provides great detail as to what you need to do. They're infectious disease committee, so they focus in on really what you need to do to ensure the safety of your staff. For us, our housekeeping is not the strongest, so that's where GBAC comes in for me, and really trying to add the extra to it, extra step, and ensure that we're in a safe space. And then the last piece, not really technology-wise, but we're working with our HVACs within each of our buildings to increase airflow and those types of things, as that's a concern for a number of folks. Obviously, propping doors open is a great opportunity to assist with that, but then my risk management hat really goes off when I start talking about propping doors open. So trying to work with the HVAC to really work through that piece. But those are some of the technologies that we're really focusing in on. Again, none of those are really new to us, so no new costs necessarily, except for the Clorox 360 piece. And the app is being covered by the university as a whole, which is a blessing.
At USC Columbia, we're looking at the electrostatic sprayers, both the handheld and the backpack version of that, just to assist us with cleaning, because we will be doing the block cleaning or the block scheduling as well, 3 sessions throughout the day. So that will really help speed up the cleaning process between the blocks. And then once we do open full time, we'll be able to section off and clean a section at a time rather than having to close the building is the hope. We'll be doing the temperature kiosks that we've already kind of discussed. We too will be doing a reservation system for our spaces, especially group exercise, as well as OREC. So if we choose to do the bouldering wall or any educational classes through outdoor recreation, those will all be via a registration system or a reservation system. We're looking at it for fitness spaces, but we haven't made a decision as far as whether or not we'll use that for access to those fitness spaces yet. We have 3 sets of entry doors to our facility, only one of which has any type of touchless entry at the moment. So we're looking at adding touchless entry to each set of our entry and exit doors into the building. Right now, all of our entry is through a hand scanner, so that's a big no-no. The only way you can get into the building and through the access point and clock in for our student employees is through a hand scanner. So right now, I feel like that's one of the technology pieces that we're kind of reverting back old school. So we're looking at different ways, probably using proximity through cell phone for clock in. And then the good old Carolina card for student ID for check-in purposes at the entry desk. We've been utilizing Connect2 a lot. So they have some pretty cool tools through Connect2 that we've been able to take a look at our usage numbers and see those times that we might have issues with capacities that we have set in spaces, so that we're already pre-prepared and using that data to kind of drive our decisions on what capacities will be, what we will need to do should that capacity be hit at that time. Do we need to set up extra queuing or whatever that, or a reservation system for that space? And we're also using Connect2 for our cleaning audits, because you can set up cleaning task lists on there. So that will help us turn in those daily audits that we might be or probably will be asked to supply. We also are adding additional security cameras in our spaces, especially spaces that could be utilized in a way that they're not set up for, or if we do keep a permanent body pump class set up, that people aren't going in there between classes, utilizing the equipment and kind of messing up all of the cleaning that was done after the last class. And then we too will be offering some virtual group exercise style classes and intramural programs as well.
This is the question where I joked that I'm going to be the anti-technology, because you remember those lack of budgets I talked about? We don't have any of that fun stuff. It's where I get rec center envy. So we are doing a lot of stuff that is just what we've always done, and we look for free apps in order to do some things. So in our pool, we are doing a reservation system, and we're using IM Leagues and their new facility scheduling piece. We're doing a first come, first serve in our facility, or the actual wellness center. We're going to see how that goes and kind of go from there. Our capacity right now is 39 people, so it's very easy for our staff to manage. It's not, and we have one open space and one studio. So it's very, you can see it all at one time. So that makes it a little bit easier to know there's 7 people in the studio or there's 32 people downstairs. And then they use their ID card. It's scanless. That, you know, it's just they run it under a scanner, and so they don't have to touch anything. So I get very like, I wish I had all that stuff when I hear other people talk. But we're definitely in the old school format for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're alone, Mila. So I will say that if anyone of our participants has other like either free or not very expensive tools that you're looking at, go ahead and type them in the chat, because I think it would be helpful for people who might have any other limitations. Just share that information. We're all in this together, even though we're not all in the same boat. So as much as we can share information, that would be great. So at this point, let's shift gears and turn our attention to the chat and open up our Q&A session. If you have questions, please continue submitting them in the chat box if you haven't already, and we'll do our best to get to what everyone has submitted. So let me check out where we had our first question. Let's see. So we had a question, do you have academic classes in your facility, and how will you account for that in capacity counts, especially if you have a classroom setting?
We are rec and PE, so we are connected to academic classes. We have 2 classrooms in our building at this point. We've actually offered up our basketball courts as potential classroom spaces for others, some of your large lecture classes. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how we manage that. I really don't know that just yet. We have one large classroom in which social distancing is able to happen, and then there's a smaller one that doesn't necessarily do that. So we're working through that still at this point. And when you talk about capacity numbers, that's a conversation that we're having. My hope is that those folks don't count against the capacity, right? I'm kind of focusing in what I'm pushing for our facility management department to think about is active capacity is the word that I've been using. So that's what I'm trying to do, because that's what I want to announce. Because if we say capacity is 60 people, our staff is 30, and then you have a Red Mango offering that has 10. Now we're talking about not that many people. It's not even really worth being open. So we're trying to set it up so those numbers don't count against us, because what we want to focus in on is your active capacity is what I'm trying to do. Not to say that that'll happen, but that's my push right now is the term active capacity.
I like that, Michael. I'm going to steal that. Active capacity.
Yeah.
We also have our exercise sports science department is housed in our space, and they have a classroom and a lab. I also teach within that program, and so what we are to do as instructors is figure out how to split our classes in half, basically. So I teach a fitness assessment, and I normally have 18 students in my class. I'm going to go hybrid, the lectures online, a lab on Tuesday for half the class, and a lab on Thursday for the other half. And every instructor is having to do that if they teach a lab-based class. Now, the one thing that our facilities did is they separated our square footage. So the square footage where I did my capacity was only for the fitness space, not our offices. They're doing a separate capacity for classrooms. So that is another way you can look at it, is have them separate that, and then your numbers will change a little bit instead of doing it just your entire space.
Yeah, similarly to Mila, we're doing capacities per space. And right now we do have one shared use facility. It's shared with academics, athletics, and campus rec. So that's been an interesting set of relationships to try to maneuver around. But we are kind of letting academics take the lead and figure out what they need to figure out, and then we will figure out recreation in that facility after they've figured out what they're doing, because there's no sense in us making a plan for recreation purposes in that facility, not knowing what the full plan for academics is going to be, because they offer a lot of physical activity classes in that space as well. So we don't want to repurpose a gym space into more fitness space, and they need the gym space for a class. So we are letting academic sections take the lead in that before we make any finalized decisions within that facility. So right now our focus is 100% on campus rec, singular use facility, and we will deal with that one. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have some answers from academics and we'll be able to move forward with that.
Okay. For the temperature scan and screenings that were mentioned, is that for patrons / students and professional staff? I know, Mila, you already answered this in the chat, but Michael and Brittany, can you answer from your perspectives?
Yes, that'll be for everyone. From our perspective, again, our goal is to connect this to the app that the Duke is going to have as a whole. So it's not a separate arm. It'll kind of just communicate within that same space. So yes, everyone will need to do that as you access the building, but you're also going to have to complete, the questionnaire before you even come to campus as a whole.
Yes, and we're the same. It will be for anyone who walks into our facility, whether it be for a tour, guests that are signing in, or any patrons or members as well.
And I'll piggyback off of that real quick. We've decided not even to have guests or tours within our facility, most likely this entire fall. We're going to kind of refrain from that.
Okay. Will you allow fitness center patrons to shower in your facility? And are you providing towels for working out and showering, or will patrons have to bring their own?
For us at this point, all locker rooms are closed. They're very hard to police, and that's one of the reasons that they're closed. So yeah, there will be no showering at this point. We're setting up some lockers that'll be in some common spaces, but not very common because you don't want people gathering. But at least a place for some folks to put some items. But our locker rooms at this point will be shut down and closed, and we're not providing towels, nor are we even at this point, and we're in level C. Once we get to August 10th, we'll be in level C of our reopening, and level C doesn't even include checking out equipment. So we won't check out basketballs, we won't check out wrist wraps, we won't check out different things in the weight room either. And I don't really foresee that happening until probably towards Thanksgiving.
We're the same. No showers, no towels, no checking out equipment.
Yeah, we're the same as well. No showers, no towels, no equipment. As of right now, our hope is to be able to allow locker members to utilize their lockers. So we've kind of reallocated those lockers accordingly. So we've spaced out our current locker holders so that we can ensure that they're at least 6 foot apart, but hopefully we can allow them to utilize the locker themselves, but we will take the showers offline.
Okay, so we had a question specifically for Michael. Is your virtual student fee only for the rec center or other campus / student services?
So we fall underneath athletics here at Duke. So it is just a rec fee. It is just connected to us. So there will just be for rec and physical education.
Okay. What platforms are people using for virtual fitness classes right now? This person is specifically struggling with music copyrights. So.
Well, I'll chime in real quick. So we're using our YouTube channel. One of the things we did to fight the copyright piece, and I would encourage anyone else to think about it, is we leveraged our relationship with athletics. The music that they play in your athletic venues, the music that they play during games, those things are things that most of the time your athletic program has bought into. They've already paid for. So that's exactly what we use. We use the same platform. If you came into Cameron and they were playing music between timeouts, so on and so forth, that's the same content we're using for our videos. And it's pretty user friendly. So I would definitely reach out to your athletic programs, those folks that are on campus, and see what they may have to offer, because I'm positive they've already bought into some type of a license that allows them to play current or at least semi-current music. You know, we're not playing today's music, but we are probably playing music that was new in February and January. So that's close enough. But that was a free way, right? And we didn't have to pay for that. It was just a partnership. So that's the way we kind of avoided that and got some cool music, because what is fitness without cool music?
Are you going, Brittany?
Go ahead, Mila.
For us, we honestly didn't offer it on our own. We piggybacked on every other university that was already doing it because it was a way for us to save money. And the only ones that we did offer were some of our instructors just chose to do it on their own. So like our Zumba instructor, which the Zumba fees were already in that. So it really wasn't through us that we did that. And I mean, universities were doing awesome things out there. I'm like, we can't reinvent the wheel the way they can. So we just piggybacked and really kind of gave out links of where great things were happening. So, I mean, we're sharing, right? We're sharing. So it's, that is a good way to do it. I just don't think you have to do it all yourself, especially if you don't have the resources to do it. There's no shame in that. So just kind of think about that.
Yeah, at the current moment, we're offering through Instagram Live or Instagram TV, but we have had some issues with the copyright music as well. So we've kind of encouraged our student instructors to try to find some royalty-free music. We're also a Les Mills school, so there are some Les Mills formats that are available with that royalty-free music that we've been utilizing. The problem is there's not a lot of those, so there's only so many times you can do the same release, if you will, before you get a little bored of it. So we have seen a little bit of a drop off on some of our attendance for those virtual classes, but we haven't really decided how we're going to go about it in the fall yet. We are going to be doing the virtual Les Mills offering. So they also allowed us the opportunity to give a discounted rate for our students through a special link that will allow them to utilize the Les Mills on demand for $9.99 a month. So if a student really loves that program, they can get that for a discounted rate. So it saves them about $5 a month.
Okay. Are the gym wipes or disinfectants you are using on the EPA approved list for killing COVID? And if not, is your school okay with that?
Ours are not at this point, but they will be when we return. We're changing vendors to accommodate the need to kill that. Funny enough, we had already kind of discussed that before COVID. Like, what's the point if we're just wiping with water? So we're working through that right now, and I think we lean towards utilizing Granger, and that's because there's, again, leveraging partnerships. That's who housekeeping uses. So we can kind of piggyback off of them and leverage that relationship. Again, I think Mila nailed it. Like, collaborate, you know, you use each other. This is a time to really leverage all of that because it's so new to all of us. So we're going to leverage our housekeeping relationship with our ex-wives, or our wipes, I should say.
And we are also using what our housekeeping uses. Another thing, I didn't mention this before, is one of the things we're doing, and because our capacity is small, every person that enters our facility will get their personal disinfectant bottle and a personal towel that they will have with them and then turn in. And then we'll disinfect the bottle before we give it back to somebody else. But yeah, we're going with the medical grade that is going to be used across our entire campus. So everybody's going to be doing the same thing and can express to everybody that comes on campus, no matter where they are, this is what we're using as a university, not just the rec center.
Yeah, and we're currently using, or we will be using what campus will be using as well, at least for the foreseeable future. We are working to make sure that everything that we use to sanitize or to clean is on that EPA registered list, but not everything at the current moment is, but we're working to find replacements for that is not.
This next question is, will you clean your lockers in between users? And I think, Brittany, you were one person that said you're hoping lockers will be available.
So our lockers that we will have available are those that people have rented for a long period of time. So they have rented them for the semester or for the school year. We will have a few day lockers that are available, but most of those, the doors have either been taken off of and they're just a cubby at this point, or we do have a few digital ones, but we will clean those every hour, at least the touch pads and within them. So.
And very similar to her, we're going to rotate ours. So as you make your reservation, we'll probably allocate you a locker that's available. And then we will clean those, because the reservation will be about 50 minutes and allow 10 minutes for us to allow folks to get out. And that 10 minutes will also allow for us, our staff, to hit high touch points, which will be included. The lockers will be included in that.
Okay. What happens when a temperature is detected? I'm guessing above 98.6. And this person is specifically mentioning that they're going to use the Echelon temp check kiosk. But anyway, what do you anticipate happening when an above average temperature is detected?
Well, we're using this right now with rehab. So everybody that comes into the facility has to be screened, and we're using 100.4 as the threshold, and they will be denied access. And so one of the staff training things that we're going to be doing today with our staff is role playing. What do you say when you have to deny access, and have them work through that? Because they're going to have to come up with language of what do I say? We are going to take it twice. So we're going to, if it comes up high the first time, wait, a minute, whatever it would be, take it a second time, and then they would be asked not to return for 48 hours. Now, how we track if they come in the next day, we're going to have to learn that process. So what I'm thinking right now is we'll just flag anybody who tracked 100.4, we'll know that, put them on a list so they don't return the next day. But yeah, it's going to be, the whole social distancing thing. If they have to break up groups of people, we're going to role play all of that, because they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to go up to people and say, listen, you all need to, spread apart. And what are you going to say? You can't be rude. You need to be polite, but you also need to be firm. Mm-hmm. So that's part of our training, is a bunch of role play stuff today.
And real quick, Mila, what system are you using for temperature checks?
We're just using a thermometer, a temporal scanning thermometer, so they can stay a little bit away from a person. Mm-hmm.
I can piggyback just slightly. So if one of the things that we talked about, and it really came up when I was talking with the Dolphins, was obviously the temperature outside is going to play a big role in how you read. If it's 101 degrees outside and you walk from your car to the entrance, there's a good chance that you're going to be high. So our goal is to allow a 15-minute resting period within your reservation. We're encouraging folks to go back to their cars, but I'm really reconsidering that, because if your temperature runs high because you walked in and it was too hot outside, then you walk back to your car and walk back to the entrance, you're still going to be high. So we're working on an internal location in which we can house people for a 15-minute gap, and then rescan. If you rescan high, then that is where that app kicks in, and you have to document that. We're flagged in there. You're flagged on Fusion. and then the university will dictate how long until you are able to be released from the flag that's administered.
Okay, so how is everyone building strategies for social media as they reopen? How are you communicating?
We're utilizing everything that's possible, right? I mean, the communication is coming from all over the place still, and it's fluid. And I think social media typically allows you to kind of be fluid, right? So we're utilizing everything. We're communicating through listservs. We're communicating on social media. We're communicating on the websites. We're communicating via Slack. All those opportunities to communicate exist right now. And as we go through this, I think leveraging all of those will need to remain, because folks receive it in different ways. Emails and you got to get the message out, and it's got to be consistent. Obviously, most of our students are social media, but a lot of your faculty and staff are not. So being consistent, but providing a diverse option for communication is huge.
Okay, we have a couple more questions, and I know, Mila, at least you have something at noon, so I want to maybe ask one or two more. I do also want to say that this chat will still exist even after we all hang up. You all can feel free to keep discussing. That would be totally fine. So there was a specific question for Brittany. What specific equipment did you move to your basketball gyms?
So we moved a lot of our selectorized equipment to the basketball courts, and then any self-propelled cardio machine we moved. And then some of the smaller cardio we were able to move that needed power. We have several different plugs throughout the floor for basketball scoreboards and things like that. So we were able to utilize some of our floor plugs for the smaller electric cardio pieces, but every single self-propelled piece of equipment went down to a basketball court.
Okay. And last but not least, everyone get ready in the chat area real quick, because we're going to do a quick poll, and we have two questions. So one is, if this roundtable has been helpful and you would be interested in joining another roundtable discussion in the future, go ahead and type yes real quick in the chat. The second question is when you would ideally like to have another session. So go ahead and type your timing preference in the chat as well, whether it's 2 weeks from now or a month from now in July or sometime in August or later. We're happy and willing to keep hosting these sessions as long as they're beneficial, but we want to make sure we're also aligned with the timing that makes the most sense. And I know that we had a few more questions, but I need to be respectful of the timing of everyone who might have something going on right after this. So feel free to keep using the chat for other questions that might come up. We'll do our best to continue the conversation and connect you with people if you have specific questions for our panelists. And thank you to all of our panelists for participating. And if you have any follow-up questions, contact your sales rep. We'll try to get you the right answer. Thank you to all of our participants for joining in, and especially again to our panelists for their contributions and for leading this discussion so well. With that, I hope you all have a safe and healthy weekend. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.